I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. We are recording live from Chat Square. Andrew, tell our audience about New York's hottest new Hell Square.
Well, it's not a version of like Chat Roulette or Microsoft Chat. This is an actual place, IRL, because we're getting out of the virtual world these days and touching grass. And by grass, I mean the dirty concrete of Chinatown. Those mean streets of Chatham Square, off of Bowery. Does it qualify as a sequel to Hell Square number 9?
Like Doyers Street. Hell Square 6? I don't really think Doyers is Hell Square. Chatham Square, though, is on its way. Mm-hmm. For too long, it has been occupied by unsavory types.
Oh my gosh. Tread lightly here. You're going to get fined like Lamella.
Now, it's the right kind of people are moving in. There's a Estella-like restaurant with an Australian cook. The exact type of demographic that this neighborhood has craved for so long.
Who let the Aussies out of Williamsburg? Stay in Williamsburg.
There's just too many spots serving Avo toast and brekkie. They needed to expand their palate. Another place has opened in Chat Square called Bar Oliver at 1 Oliver Street. And some people we know are involved in this new establishment.
Shout out to Asa.
Yeah. And I guess they've had this property for a really long time, for like 10 years or something, and they're finally opening it because I think they looked at it in 2016 or had it that long.
Oh,
but now, all roads lead, literally and figuratively, to Chatham Square.
Well, not before we get too into Chat Square. I was on the mean streets of Canal a few nights ago, maybe Friday night, and it was a beautiful fall night, as they are in New York City, and it was not for me anymore. I had been maybe like my regularity with Dime Square has been waning because of life, but I was down. I was ready. I had my nice Wallabies on. I had my nice pants. My Dickies were clean.
I got the alert. The streets were chirping. Quo back.
I had an hour to kill just to do whatever. And I found myself as this old man searching for a place to get N beer. And I couldn't locate it because our favorite places, I still love Clandestino, veterans of the Cookie Soup Classic. It was overrun with young people frolicking and having a great time that I didn't know. And I was like, fair enough. It belongs
young
to
people
you now.
frolicking and having a great time. Oh, steer clear, Andrew. Run as fast as your legs can carry you. There's got to be a place where older people are unhappy nearby. There must.
I know. Where's the curmudgeons drowning their Nick sorrows in those beers? But it didn't feel like the people I'm used to being around in that bar. It felt like Nolita was kind of coming down, and it was a lot of Amy Leon Dore and a lot of Kith maybe, and that kind of scene, as New York City goes, it belongs to people who occupy it, and I understood that maybe it's not for me anymore. So I am so blessed to hear of Chat Square as the new place for old heads like us to hang.
Now, Chat Square traditionally has been a place vacant. No one was there. It's just an empty expanse of pavement. And now, finally, become a hotspot for nightlife, for culture, for culinary experiences that it once lacked.
Mm-hmm. And there's a reason for that, right? Like, not only gang related, two gangs kind of operated there, and it's different than like Italian gangs, I guess, or they fought amongst themselves, but they didn't really give up leases to people who weren't friends and family adjacent to their circles, right? It was hard to get real estate to rent in Chinatown, and there was a long New Yorker article that came out years ago about how it's really hard to flip Chinatown businesses and buildings in that whole neighborhood because the buildings are owned by so many small pieces of like a conglomerate of ownership, so you can't really locate who actually owns the building because it's so spread out. And now that the mega jail is there, you're seeing kind of like that tension kind of breaking.
Would you say it's some sort of Tong, perhaps, was running these places?
Like the Tong song? The Tong from the Tong song?
Like when Mike Tyson was being interviewed and he turned away to reveal his Tong?
It was like, Mike, let me see that Tong.
But this area, I mean, you were more of a Ghost Shadows Day One, in my opinion.
I don't know. Is that the one? I always get them confused because they operated on like 4 blocks and they had 2 and the Flying Dragons had 2. But
wow, you really were Switzerland in this whole thing. Like, I'm sorry, which gang are you again? The Flying Sharks? The Who Dragons?
It's like, listen, Wonton Garden is the Flying Dragons, and New York Noodle Town is the Ghost Shadows. I'm like, how does the cuisine differ? It's like, it doesn't really. I'm like, well, I am the Clint Capella of Chinatown then.
Do you think that we can split, say, Bridges, the Australian Estella-esque restaurant, and give them to, say, the Flying Dragons, and then maybe Bar Oliver is like the Ghost Shadows haunt?
Well, like, the Ghost Shadows might have approached the Flying Dragons to be like, we'll give you 6 number 1 picks for Bridges. I'm like, well, it's a hot spot. Maybe you can have it if they're unprotected. And you got to do what you got to do to get it done.
Like 6 first rounders for Bridges seems a lot to pay.
But, the heart wants what the heart wants.
That's true.
So Chat Square is kind of in this nightlife no man's land. There was Le Baron back in the day, your crew, and then that's flipped over to Juku. My old art dealer had kind of a speakeasy bar down there. Still does. I believe Juku's still open. But there's been various pump fakes with that neighborhood for nightlife reasons. Red Egg was kind of adjacent, but not quite. It was above Canal and a little bit to the west. So Chat Square is kind of like a dark horse. I did not expect it to bear nightlife fruit.
I think the momentum that we've seen created it as an inevitability, right? Just things going towards the financial district. You've got the region over there with the river. You've got the Fongs area. You've got
and Asos
time again,
Fongs. Right.
And it just starts kind of funneling towards that vicinity.
And you have galleries like during the day.
Well, it's funny you mentioned, Le Baron, because way back in the day, that was also a club called Yellow.
That's right.
And that was specifically had issues because of those gangs back in the day.
Yep.
And it was most notorious for an incident where a guy who is now a little bit more known, a rapper named China Mac, who came out of prison and he was incarcerated for shooting the friend of the rapper Jin at that bar
only two
over some gang shit.
Yep.
And paralyzing his buddy. And I think he shot him in the bathroom at Yellow and paralyzed him, and then went to prison for that, and then came out and sort of became like a neighborhood legend-ish character. But yeah, that was all. Can we say that's the lore of Chat Square?
I mean, sheesh, there are YouTubes easily accessible that like people like, and then I turned into a cop, but this is my dark history of being a gang member in Chat Square.
Then crazy. I joined the biggest gang in New York.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's literally what he says. He was just like, yeah, my time had kind of run out with the street gangs, and if the biggest gang in New York didn't know about my history and would have me, I was certainly willing,
I needed a larger gang that would provide me with a 401k and an excellent union.
Yeah.
The Flying Dragons, the union just isn't as strong post-Reagan.
How come the largest gang in New York doesn't get the respect that the small gangs get? We talked about the Ghost Dragons a second ago, being like, whoa, damn. And then we're like, the cops. I'm like, they should be the scariest, right?
I mean,
is it because of the corruption? Is it because of the Italians kind of? Is it the donut trope that makes them less scary?
Well, I think it's that we've got the mythologizing of police through pop culture, because mostly they should be considered the scariest. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
They have immunity. They can just fuck you up, and then the taxpayer will be like, all right, get out of my face. Here's a couple $100,000, and the cops just shrug like, hey, I don't know, not my money.
Like, I would never side-eye a leathery skinned, like 50-year-old Chinese guy who's smoking a cigarette on the corner. Like, never. I just don't even look him in the eye. Cops, on the other hand, I'm just like, smoke bacon. Is there a Dunkin' Donuts nearby? Oh, look, they're on their phones. Let me take a picture of them on their phones. Like, I would never
What's up, Candy Crush?
Yeah. If there's like a middle-aged to elder Chinese man smoking a cigarette, I'm scared of him.
Fair enough. I mean, that's how you got to survive in Chat Square.
Chat Square. All right. So you've been down there. You've hit the streets. Can we get an initial review? Can we get a rookie report on Chat Square?
Still a lot of concrete. There's a lot of intersections there. All roads, as I said, lead there, but it's also a problem because it's an expanse of asphalt.
Yeah.
That said, I've heard from other people that there is like motion. It's having motion. Let's just put it that way.
I would love to hang out there over Canal Street at this point.
No, it is.
Time again.
I saw. I went by Kalina Strada store this weekend. They just opened on Canal,
right?
And talked to one of her friends, someone who works in fashion, and they were saying, I'm looking at Chatham Towers, and I was like, Chat Towers?
It was hard to get apartments there, but now you see listings on Street Easy. It wasn't like you needed Mr. Fong to help you, and sometimes you'd point at buildings like, I can't show a white person that building. But if you're Chinese,
I looked at a couple apartments in Chat Tower.
Yeah.
And it's an older Asian woman. She's the plug.
Yeah. I mean, it used to be Fong. That's why that bar is called Fong's, because he's kind of a legend. Because if you were hard up for a place in Chinatown and you didn't have the Mandarin Connect, he would be able to kind of speak on your behalf because he was so respected in that neighborhood.
Right. I'm saying just the towers themselves. There's a woman who's like the manager.
I've seen some units for sale there. They look kind of nice, but is it possible for a takeover as like similar to what happened in Canal Street? Can enough kids move in to change the vibe there?
The biggest obstacle to that, this is said with no rooting one way or another, is that it's tons and tons of commercial stuff. Mm-hmm. It's not that residential in the same way that Canal Street is. You got Canal, and then everything off of it is residential.
Sure.
It's less so over there. Yeah. I want to say there's like a library or a school. There's just a lot of like permanent structures right in that area. Mm-hmm. That said, Like, if we have that gentrification dog, we're coming in. We're coming in.
Yeah. The Chinatown Day ones have been screaming into the void about this for 6 or 7 years when the mega prison proposal was accepted. And there was just recently a protest for the museum down there, accusing the museum, the Chinese American Museum, for facilitating that prison. And they were fearing that not only would it end or stifle the businesses that had been there for generations, it was an actual takeover of those streets. Like, leases and buildings would suffer to a degree where it would just be gobbled up by the city.
I would always be concerned about those things.
It's a huge mega prison. It's a dark vibe, but
to me, it's a small price to pay
Yeah.
to get that beautiful new prison in your backyard.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to pinpoint where the outrage begins and ends. I'm bummed because, obviously I love Chinatown and I hate having that thing leering over it. But, like, Chinatown has crept into Slam Gennaro territory and, like, kind of taken over large parts of Little Italy, where now Little Italy is kind of fighting back, but it's been relegated to, at the smallest point, maybe like 3 or 4 blocks for a while in the aughts. So, like, Chinese people are resourceful, but the sons of the resourceful Chinese people maybe have a different skill set.
It's like, what's that movie about the Chinese and Italians clashing over territory in downtown Manhattan?
On Doyer Street. Yeah, all of them.
All of them. It's all those movies. They're all about the Italians and the Chinese going to war.
That's the whole tension, right? I mean, it's like, this is like the era of saying the quiet parts out loud. It's like, these movies are about invaders feeling invaded. It's like, who was here first? All these movies are about Chinese people and Chinatown.
The Chinese just keep intruding on the territory of the noble Italian gangs. I'm here trying to eat a little pasta fagioli at the Ravenette or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And here come these damn hordes.
When that was happening when I was a teenager, I was just like, well, Italian people should give us what we want. We're not going to these restaurants because they're all terrible. Like, who wants to go into like this kind of like uninviting, dusty restaurant for a plate of, like, at that time, like $12 spaghetti and meatballs? But now it's gotten different. Like, it's the camera era, so everything has been spruced up. There's like, I believe there's it's a great place to get a slice now. Finally, it took decades. And then there's like a food hall. The influence of Italy. Have you been to Italy in another Hell Square, right where Jack's wife Frida is?
There's an Italy over there now?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. There's fully an Italy there where, I don't know if you
like
remember
in
Dom's.
in Dickhead Triangle.
In Dickhead Triangle. The place that used to be Dom's in like 2001 is now in Italy.
Huh. I guess I just don't go around Dickhead Triangle enough. I kind of forgot what's over there.
Oh, it's weird. I thought you lived there.
No, I'm down in Dickhead Square.
Yeah. I was like, I'm just hanging out in a chat Dickhead Square. It sucks. I go to Balthazar like once a month, and I always walk by because I'm a dickhead. But I've been into that Italy. That enterprise is a whole nother segment onto itself. But you still haven't given us the on the streets color of Chat Square.
Oh,
is it cool? Like, is it usable?
Yeah, I think my main takeaway on Chat Square is that, yeah, it's totally fine.
Oh,
it's
come on.
right.
No,
no. I'm saying it's exactly in the walkable region. It makes full sense. It's like sort of close to the river. It's sort of close to, Canal Street. Once you get to Allen, like that area, it's a short walk.
All right, here's
I have not been to Bridges. I saw it was it got a review in the New Yorker recently, and I know the manager there. She's from Chez Matant previously, and I believe it's a hot spot. It's getting a lot of attention.
I want to go. Yeah.
I went to one Oliver, and it was a bar that was also selling. I forget what the exact term is for like I forget if it's pinchos, whatever it is. It's like the northern Spanish San Sebastian finger food.
Yum. Yum.
Little plates of salami and cheese and olives
Saloon.
and things like that. I think it's only open till 11, from my understanding. So there isn't a nightlife scene there yet. But we know how this works. You get 2 restaurants that end up being destinations. Then you have a couple bars open up that people go to while they're waiting for their table, or people go to after, and then it rolls.
I'm gonna inject the hot take because I feel like it needs it. I don't think it's gonna work. I don't think it's gonna work, right? Like the reason why somewhere like Times Square worked is because they started shutting down the streets. It started turning into like a European model. I think essentially what Americans or New Yorkers want is like a European thing where they can walk on streets with no cars and drink drinks and hang out with their friends at tables. And then that's literally what happened with Time Again. I love that place, but we got to occupy the parking lot. In Chatham Square, when we say there's a lot of traffic, it's a kind of the mouth of the Brooklyn Bridge. So there's a lot of trucks, there's a lot of all hours, it doesn't slow down really. And there's wide streets of like, I believe there's like 4 lanes going 2 each way with lots of stop sites, and there's an intersection.
There's so much asphalt.
So much, and it's not a intersection of 2 streets, it's an intersection of like 3. It's too cacophonous. It doesn't lend itself to a European model. It's very Asian. And I just don't think even Chinatown in New York City and Manhattan, it's going to work. Like, we're going to be there and it's going to be fun, but like, there's a low ceiling for a location like that. If location is the trope or cliche of everything involving real estate, then this one is like a rizache.
So just so people understand, you've got Park Row and Bowery run into each other. That's your main artery. But you also have 4 other streets, pretty much 5 other streets running into that. And you've got St. James Place, Oliver Street, East Broadway, Worth Street, and Mott Street. And they're all connecting in this same area.
It's too fucked up.
Just looking at it on a map, it's absurd.
Yeah, it's too fucked up. It's like, it's not pleasant. Of course, you can just traverse those streets and cross and wait and stuff, but it doesn't feel picturesque. We're such a visual nightlife thing now that I feel like the tightness of the Hell Squares create the Hell Squares. If you don't have that tightness, like Dickhead Square works because it is enclosed, right? It is
Dickhead Triangle?
Yeah, Dickhead Triangle, my bad. It's only 3 sides.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
But I remember Howard Street, or even out in front of Lovely Day. It takes a little bit of space in order for this to work. And these cars, man, Chatham Square just isn't the right spot. That said, if you had this great idea for a bar, or you had a little bit of money, your dollar goes longer in a place like Chatham Square. So it'll attract people like us. But like even the Eastwood kind of intersection, it doesn't have that potential.
We saw another kind of Hell Square over the weekend. Mike Tyson entered it. The legendary Mike Tyson, 58 years young, went against your boy, Jake Paul.
I'm not mad at Jake Paul. I'm not mad at him.
You've been singing his praises as a prize fighter for years. And
He's
finally,
not
you've been validated. He beat Iron Mike Tyson.
Listen, you have Donald Trump. I'll give you that victory. Give me Jake Paul.
You've got him. He's yours.
I mean, where to start with this? There's so much to unpack. Super sad and melancholy, but like interesting, right? Like we don't get to revisit our childhoods like this ever. Michael Jordan doesn't put on the jersey again ever, right? So this 58-year-old man was going to maybe die in the ring. I think you have your optimists, your Jordan originalists, who were saying Iron Mike is Iron Mike. He is an indestructible heavyweight, maybe the best of all time, which I don't think is true. And he is going to give glory back to Gen X and whoever wants to relive those years where they watch him knock out no names and maybe Michael Spinks being the best fighter. But he was 58, and among, I think, boxing dorks, I heard that they were like, this is going to be ugly unless this is just for show, and we think this is just for show. It's going to be a lot of plotting, jabbing, and there's going to be hugging because Jake Paul could kill this man because he's younger and bigger.
I think it was probably agreed upon as an outcome.
For sure.
Where Jake Paul's going to win, but he's not going to humiliate Mike Tyson. Mike is too old to be fighting. He just went through blood transfusions, whatever. He had some health stuff.
He's 58.
The way he moved, I'm not saying that he could have just moved better. And someone pointed out from videos where he was obviously a lot more mobile from training sessions.
That was from Roy Jones 4 years ago.
He wasn't moving that great against Roy Jones either.
Yeah, dude. He's old. He shouldn't be.
He's old.
He's a person, right?
But I also think that he didn't really make much of an attempt to win that fight either. In the first round, he threw a couple blows that had a little malice to them, but not much.
I mean, there's a lot of people who are claiming that the fix was in and they didn't want Mike Tyson to win because Jake Paul was the promoter and he wanted to, see his career move on. And if Tyson ended him there, that would be the end of his money. I didn't see any of that. I was like, Tyson isn't holding back. Tyson is scared. Tyson is 58, as any 58-year-old man should be. Okay, he didn't throw a few punches. Aside from that, he just didn't look like he should be in that situation. I'm like, throw the towel.
I agree. I just felt as if neither fighter looked particularly like they were trying to knock the other one out. Like the self-preservation may have been what caused it to look as if it was rigged, because Jake Paul didn't want to really get hit by Mike Tyson.
Well, there's no way, right? I mean, there's no potential of that.
Well, I just mean Mike Tyson hitting Jake Paul still probably, if we're saying he's throwing blows like with actual malice.
A practice. Yeah.
I'm going to say if he hits him with a real punch, Jake Paul might get knocked out, and he's not trying to let that happen. But also, he's not really trying to get in there and fight with Mike Tyson either. He was just content to jab at him, throw punches into his gloves. At no point did any of the two boxers make it clear that they were like about to put it on the line to win this fight. It was let's just do this for 8 rounds. We'll collect our money and move on.
Rosie Perez, who has presented herself as a kind of a boxing expert. I wish she was kind of better at the mic, but she is a boxing day one. And I think in the second round, she was like, Tyson looks bad. Paul can end him right now, but he's not. Like, this is not good for Mike. It's like, why isn't Jake Paul just ending him? And I think to your point, it's Jake Paul is a performer before he is a fighter. And he has a lot of reverence for Mike Tyson, as we know. As we knew the day before when Tyson slapped him. He was like, that was amazing. That was Mike Tyson. And that's what transpired. But I think the interesting thing that happened was we talk about Jordan originalists all the time. And that's a bigger idea. It's like watching Donald Trump, your guy Donald Trump win. It's like there has been a palpable movement of people who speak, whether that be in the media or social media, or whatever, about the glory days, our history. And as Gen X ages into old age, we are gilding the lily and putting lipstick where we can. And like, Mike, there has to have been a conspiracy theory if our guy Tyson lost, because Tyson is an immaculate mythological character in the vein of Michael Jordan and now Donald Trump. And I think it's really interesting because even in that time, Tyson, maybe not even a top 10 fighter. Michael Jordan is certainly a top 10 basketball player in the NBA, no doubt. Tyson, maybe not. Tyson's best win was against Michael Spinks, and then he lost against a couple no-names, quit on the stool, which is a mental thing, so that's hard to parse. But the fighters he faced that were good, Lennox
he
Lewis
beat the hell out
Holyfield.
of New York Times food critic Frank Bruni.
Right. Lennox Lewis demolished him, and Holyfield broke his brain. And those guys aren't even the best of all time. But this is a wonderful conversation, right? Because we had just got done seeing the reign of Tyson Fury, a man who was named after Mike Tyson. So, like, this is an incredible, indelible story that we enjoy, that I enjoy. And I'm not trying to salt that. But then when you see the actualization of our memories in the ring at 58 years old, there is a sadness that we have to push off in order to survive as aging people. And that's where all the kind of take-itudes and the spin alleys come in, because getting older sucks and it's inevitable. And watching Mike Tyson get beat by Jake Paul is going to be difficult to watch.
I thought it had the potential to be difficult to watch, and I understood why I understood the appeal of this fight, because it not only gave people an opportunity to see Mike Tyson like one more time, Mike Tyson, one more time, despite the fact that, as you said, he hasn't really been in a meaningful fight in ages and ages and ages. I mean, when he was fighting like Franz Botha and shit, that was a really long time ago.
Yeah.
The White Buffalo.
Yeah.
It was a long freaking time ago.
Yeah.
You know, the Roy Jones one was kind of a farce.
It was literally a farce. No one paid attention to it, right?
Right, but I mean, that was a few years ago, but we've seen him recently, and it came off as a farce. Like, okay, he's even older now, and this time, but I get it. It's Mike Tyson. He occupies a specific part of the brain of someone who is of a certain age group. Mm-hmm. He represents something, and he is also one of the most incredibly fascinating personalities and characters that we've had in sports. Just
top tier,
like elite, whatever. From
as the martyr, sorry to interrupt, but like Ali has a famous picture of arrows in his body. Tyson lived that, and Tyson as an American tragedy and maybe success. Now we hope, but as a tragic figure, no one rivals that story, and it is sad as hell.
It's sad, but there's also the sort of actualization of him as a person later in life, mm-hmm. from the man who went to prison, the man who was, a fighter, the man who lost his best
Brownsville.
Friend, I just mean,
figure. Yeah.
Him getting into like Eastern philosophy, and he's just an extremely interesting character overall. Like I don't even need to get into more. We all know it's Mike fucking Tyson.
And not to put a flower in it, but like it is, he at his prime had control in that square, in that ring, and then time took his best friend, father figure, and mentor, Gus D'Amato, right? And him trying to go back in time is like the undercurrent of his story, I think. If we want to make it into something flowery, which I kind of always love to. But him trying to fight his Gus D'Amato back to life is the tragedy there.
Also, the brilliance of your boy Jake Paul is that he knows he's loathed, and
he's interested.
He's a heel.
Yeah, of course, of course.
I mean,
we're villain. Yeah.
The entire appeal is that finally someone will give him his just desserts. He's not going to fight a real boxer.
Floyd
He's not
Mayweather
going to fight someone that no one's ever heard of, who will wipe the floor with them because they're an actual boxer. And I'm not saying he isn't a boxer. He's been doing this for a while now. He's a boxer. He's boxing. He's training.
Hasn't fought 11-1. He's not fought anyone good.
But I mean, he's put in the time and the training. Like he's a boxer. But
he's legitimate.
But that doesn't mean he's as good as people who are actual boxers.
A pound for pound fighter called him out, being like, "I'll destroy him," and his response was, "Holy shit! One of the best fighters living on the planet is talking about me." He's like, "I've arrived. I matter," and he's right? Like, I mean, quickly back to the point of like why I think it's melancholy. I think Tyson stands for our youth, our ideals as young people, certain people, and that transmutes generations. You know, you can still love Michael Jordan as a young person, but we did not want to see Colin Kaepernick put himself on that field again. Like when he became a folk hero, there was a lot of chatter of like, how come you're going to sign this scrub and not Colin Kaepernick, who's sitting right there? Is this political? I'm like, we don't want him to get tackled. We don't want him to get injured. We don't want to see him get intercepted. Like, I don't think I have the fortitude for that, and I don't think a lot of Tyson fans have fortitude for that. And as we're seeing now, I think we got let off the hook by the benevolent Jake Paul because he didn't do the thing. But Jake Paul, as a performer, ushers in a new conversation, right? And I don't like critical thinking with the starting point of grievance. So a lot of people who are like, this was a farce, this was a sham. I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was kind of fascinating. He gave us something really valuable, I think, as the promoter of this fight. And the value was like, be careful what you ask for, but also understand where the villainy lies. Because you think I'm the villain, but I'm giving you exactly what you want. But that reflection may hurt a little bit. But if I don't do it, who else will?
I think there is a way of looking at it and saying, wait, we're the villains. We all tuned in on Netflix to watch these guys fight.
No.
But ultimately, the winners here are of course, Mike Tyson. Jake Paul, obviously. But Mike Tyson made $20 million.
Years after saying, like, I'm so in debt, I don't know what to do. Jake Paul was like, you want $20 million?
And in the lead up to the fight, there were people saying, you know, Mike Tyson better not lose. This is like my childhood, right. Especially after Kamala Harris and the election. Right. If Mike Tyson goes out there and gets rinsed by Jake Paul, like, this is just going to be bad. I don't think anyone watched that fight and came away feeling that way. It was that Mike Tyson's old. He's so 58. Old.
Yeah.
Maybe he shouldn't be out there, but he's still making money. But it wasn't as if, you know, Oscar De La Hoya got pummeled by Steve 1989 MRE Info.
I mean, Manny
like,
Pacquiao
this wasn't a real. I just mean it wasn't a real fight in any sense that you could have actually watched that and been invested. Other than when Mike Tyson comes out and he stirs the feelings that you had as a youth, and he's playing the hit song "Murdergram" by Jay-Z, Ja Rule, and DMX, maybe.
Oh, released by the label Rockefeller Record, owned by the state.
New York State's own Rockefeller Records.
Right.
In association with the streets.
Yeah. I mean, not to borrow a thought that I first heard from the god Pablo Torre, but like, I'm fascinated by sports situations where someone has the potential to be humiliated. Like, I cannot look away. And boxing is one of those sports that always offers you at the very least that. And to your exact point, we didn't get that. No one was humiliated in there. We saw Mike Tyson's age. We saw maybe Jake Paul not being as skilled as someone first seeing him, being like, who is this fighter? Oh, he's not as good as like Canelo. But we walked away kind of unscathed, looking for a villain, and I couldn't locate one, really. Is it myself? Fuck no. I enjoyed that shit.
I think it's you.
I'm willing to be the villain here.
Yeah.
But is Tyson the villain? Because Tyson was the most menacing fighter ever in history, right? Or is Jake Paul the villain for being a capitalist? Because Tyson's a damn capitalist.
Yeah, they're all villains. Everyone's a villain in this thing. The other part was that the women's fight before it was so action-packed and gnarly,
fraught with controversy,
that their fight seemed even more static and unmoving and bloodless. And I mean, literally bloodless.
But we needed the stories. I mean, I use the S word so much here because you're right. The fight right before it was the better fight, but I had nothing invested in it. I couldn't locate the good guy, bad guy. Like, someone didn't come in as an angel and someone didn't come in as the devil.
Well, what I liked about that fight specifically, and I'm not a boxing fan like I used to be. I don't pay attention to it. It was years ago. I would say like Roy Jones.
I saw you in a couple fights.
Right. I'm saying, but true. But the era that I was more familiar with was like Roy Jones,
for sure,
Vargas, Mayweather, early career, that stuff.
Great time. Yeah, I'm a casual too. Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm saying I did not have any investment in that fight, but then seeing the Irish woman, she was like leading with her head, and I did enjoy afterwards the manager. Whatever the crew of Serrano was like, she's got a huge head, and I was just like, all right, that's funny.
That's what they say about me in Chat Square.
Yeah.
Figuratively and literally. But I think, I don't know. I have to cut myself off here because I think with the fight on Friday was kind of one of the main stories of my life, which is my memories are so fucked up, man. My recollection of shit is crazy because it's so untrue. And, Tyson has never fooled me, but you can talk to me about albums from that era. I'd be like, oh, the best. Why would you ever fuck with that thing? And then I listen to it again and I'm like, I wish time didn't happen. I wish time didn't exist because, like, how can I preserve my sanity while also enjoying things that happen now? Like, how can Andrei Kirilenko exist in a world of Dyson Daniels?
Many people are asking this.
Right.
Well, it's funny you mentioned this because I want to say it was Jonah from Blackbird Spy Plane.
The God. Big fan.
That, I think it was him, but it was someone who was a music journalist at one point, and they said, I did all these interviews I just have no recollection of from back in the day. Mm-hmm. And I felt the exact same thing. Granted, I was doing a lot of interviews, like just short articles on, phone calls. You talk to someone, you're getting quotes. So like there was just a volume that they weren't necessarily memorable. Hey, we're going to do a story about this producer. We need 2 secondary quotes, some people they've worked with. Can you get on the phone for 5 minutes and give me one? Mm-hmm. Or here's a micro trend and you wrote a song about it. Can I get on the phone with you for 5 minutes? So there was a zillion small interviews. And this actually ties into what I was talking about last week a bit. Like I was very accustomed to just getting on the phone, talking to a publicist. Okay, we need a quick quote. Let's talk. Versus just blogging about stuff. Mm-hmm. But every now and then, yeah, there'll be publications from the 2000s that'll post something like, Ben Dietrich wrote this article. I'm like, no recollection. Like just zero. I'm like, I did? I interviewed Slick Rick about anything. That doesn't even exist. But no recollection. Completely lost.
That kind of happened to me this week. I was just like blindly doom scrolling on Twitter and NBA memes. Something went viral on NBA memes. It was like a New York Post back page. And it was Jeremy Lin injured and said, holy fuck. Knicks, something went wrong, and I was like, damn. And I was like, oh wait, I made that. That's a painting I made. That's my artwork. But for like a few seconds, I was just like, the fuck, man, that's crazy. I'm like, oh, wait. 10 years ago, when Linsanity was going down and all those racist headlines, like a chink in the armor at ESPN Online, I just didn't care about any of that stuff. But I made a series of paintings like poking fun at language and kind of baiting what people were actually mumbling about when Linsanity was going down, which is like, this fucking Chinese guy ain't shit. This is all luck. This is now all these like Chinese flags and places in Chat Square, watching games. It's like, this ain't real. These guys aren't real fans. This isn't a real player. This is all random. And
like, you were never watching Jeremy Lin in Chat Square.
I went by a couple times. I mean,
were, but they weren't.
No, I mean, it's okay. I mean, these were young people being like, yo, you would get fired for this language now. And a few, like 1 out of 10 comments were like, I don't think this is real, guys. Look at the details. And it would just be like, everything's fucked up a little bit. The real New York Post back page was Peyton Manning that day. And it was like, I found the real one. It was hard to tell that it was on linen. And it was a transfer. It was a photographic transfer that I had made. So it wasn't like a
Jeremy Lin?
And they deleted the post, but it had gone viral. And it reminded me how I couldn't really recollect the anger or voice that I had at that time, because I was really into it. And as you know, that's the last time I cared about anything for the rest of my life.
I've seen this recently in a documentary about New York City basketball.
There's shout out. Yeah.
A very insightful, poignant quote from one of the people who was interviewed that discusses you making it to the top of the mountain and becoming a basketball nihilist on the free fall down.
Yeah, someone saying like, I can't lose my mind because it's already been lost. Somebody on this pod said that, but it wasn't me. So.
That part I don't recall anyone insulting you. It was such a cruel suggestion.
But and it's just like, I mean, I have trouble. It's sort of like we all live Hall of Fame lives. Personally, we're all living the greatest story ever told, and how LeBron James has 3 separate Hall of Fame lives. I think we all have 3 like concurrent Hall of Fame lives, and whether that life was like being a young person watching Mike Tyson, being a young person hearing about Mike Tyson, or being a young person seeing Mike Tyson at 58, is the exact thing we're trying to parse as we talk a zillion hours about Jared McCain.
So, look, I've been out here touching grass as you reconnect with your memories.
Asphalt, yeah.
Touching pavement.
Yeah.
But you've been exploring new territory on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are defecting from X, formerly known as Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been investigating the alternatives to this.
I've been lurking.
Thus far,
yep.
You're really into Peach.
Mm-hmm.
And what was another one of these social medias that failed? Anyway, all that to say, Blue Sky and Threads are the current alternate versions of Twitter.
God damn, I've been on MySpace the whole time.
Exactly.
No wonder no one's there.
Yeah. What was the Mi Gente? I've been on the Latin American social media network. But so Blue Sky, that's essentially Twitter, owned by Jack, and Threads, which is the Instagram/Meta version. What are you seeing out there, Andrew?
It's trash. Okay. Threads is basically just a muted or softer version of comment sections on Instagram. So what you see there is kind of a lot of people push content through to Threads. And it kind of has that vibe. And I want to preface this by saying, like, a lot can change if like 5 to 10 or 20 voices go ham on one of these platforms. So far, Threads, it's just like a washed up Instagram that was washed up in the first place. And then Blue Sky is just a lot of liberals and Democrats congratulating themselves for not being on Twitter. So that's not ready to go yet. I'm still hoping for that to kind of take off, because if I had to pick the lesser of two CEO evils, like maybe go with Jack, who sold Twitter to whoever would buy it, then Zuck, who is just kind of annoying. Although he's a drip god now, so maybe I have to take his side.
Yeah, I mean, now that Zuck is getting fits off, I feel as if his properties are just much more acceptable for me.
It's better than being a shaman, right? Because Jack did the whole long beard meditative thing, and Zuck went streetwear. So I got to take Zuck's side on this.
He's not wrong.
And
instead of going Rick Rubin, you went Pharrell. All right, that's better.
And Twitter has been various states of bad, very bad in the last few years since Elon took over. But I kind of find it to be okay right now, because there's still enough people remaining on it, because that's where the action is. That's where the spotlight is. That's where you can bait people and have a reaction. But there enough snitches have left where you can just kind of get some shots off.
My main take on the current version of Twitter is that it is where people are still. There is just the population of people that you follow, that you want to pay attention to. It's where news breaks, whether that's Shams or international news, whatever it may be.
TMZ.
It's still, it still is where, like, oh, what's going on?
Still.
Let me. Oh, this thing just happened in a game. Let me see what people are saying about it. It still has that cachet.
Damn, got another face tattoo.
But you know what I mean. It's like,
yeah.
Or like, oh, I just saw a good example the other day. It was like a helicopter that just kept circling my house, and I was like, I wonder if there's anything on Twitter about this. There wasn't even, but it still has that, that critical mass of people posting on it, that it can't really be replaced until some other platform has that element where, oh, news is breaking here. I'm getting conversations about stuff. The product itself at this point really does stink, but it still just controls the mantle of population and breaking news. The replies suck, the ads suck,
the bots are annoying.
It stinks, but it just has the people.
I agree. The other night, to your point, late at night, I smelled something burning in my house. And I was like, damn, is there another wildfire in Prospect Park? And I opened the door and I was like, kind of smell it still. And I went to Twitter and I was like, fire Brooklyn, fire Prospect Park, and nothing. The fire was in my house. I burned something in the kitchen. But like, I went to Twitter. I was just like, what's happening out in the world? You got
on Twitter and it's like, looks like there's a fire in Andrew Kuo's kitchen.
I was like, damn, this site's good. But yeah, to your point, like, until it happens otherwise, and you are the change you want to see made. So like, I've been trying to post on cookies and my own stuff on these other sites, and that's kind of how my strategy, which is a poor strategy for Twitter, is like, well, instead of globbing on to ideas people are talking about and going with that wave, why don't I start my own ideas? And they're always terrible and they never get likes and no one cares, but that's my strategy. So maybe I'll really, in earnest, try Blue Sky.
Well, look, it's not working. Keep at it.
Dude, sandwiches are for children. Let's go.
So what's your, I mean, you sort of shared your immediate take on these social media networks. But so Blue Sky is the one that Twitter refugees are going to. Is it just I don't even want to say leftist or progressive, a Democrat, I think is more encompassing. Is it just sort of Truth Social in a mirror? Is that what's happening here?
Yes, and I am a Democrat and I voted for Harris, but I can't really stomach all that. It's not fun. It's not interesting. There's no tension. There's no, it's like Jake Paul fighting himself, like, I don't know these cliches, but like, there's no action there. It's it needs some juice. It needs some sort of opponent, and there's no opponent on there.
Right. I think that's why all of these haven't succeeded in the same way that
I agree.
that Twitter has, because Twitter is oppositional.
Yeah.
If you are a fan of one player, then you can go and troll fans of his rival, and vice versa. Yeah. You can dunk on people.
Agreement. Yeah. Like when I was kind of like, oh, maybe the NBA doesn't have that fire anymore. And then someone was like, the Knicks are unethical. Jalen Brunson's the most fraudulent player in the NBA. I'm like, we're back. This is awesome. Thank you for that. I enjoy that because I disagree with that. And I don't think you know ball. And maybe this is blah, blah, blah. And I really enjoy that kind of dance. And there's none of that on Blue Sky. And it's dwindling on X. I claim Elon Musk is not my guy, but he's good at certain things. And he went into X or Twitter with the intention of destabilizing this entire genre of social media. And he did, because now there's 3 and they all suck.
Yeah, I can't even speak to his motives because he's just using a lot of ketamine and clearly has.
But he had a strategy. He knew what he was doing. He was like, oh, chaos. I win if there's chaos. And he did win. He's eating McDonald's with RFK right now.
Yeah, maybe. No, I mean, he sided with Donald Trump and Donald Trump won, so he can say I'm on the right side here. Mm-hmm. But if Donald Trump had not won, Elon Musk would have been on the wrong side of that. And
but history
I guess
goes
it just
to the
rings,
winners, right?
just rings culture here.
Yeah, I mean, but
so,
right. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it sounds to me that Blue Sky. Well, let me say this beforehand. Even amongst Blue Sky, if enough people use it, it'll start becoming argumentative. That's just how this online communication works. But at the moment, it's still this celebratory thing, like, hey, it's awesome over here. You got to come over here. You got to come over here. But after a little while, when there's people there, you'll get different micro feuds about other issues.
Team. Yeah,
I just mean, you go and find a subreddit about restaurants in Queens or whatever, and eventually people will start arguing about which of these 2 places is better. But you put enough people in the same place with opinions, but Blue Sky right now is still like, wow, it's so different here. Isn't it cool that we're here and we're not over there where they're arguing about stuff and we're here and we can like make fun of, I don't know, Matt Gaetz or something?
I mean, did people ever hop on to Truth Social to fight about anything?
I feel like they just had the same deal, right? We're celebrating the fact that we're here and all the libtards over there.
Right.
But eventually they probably did.
I mean, Jack is praying for it, right? And I don't know how he does it because, in my opinion, which is concurrent with my Chat Square opinion, it's going to work for the heads who are dedicated to social media in written form, but it is not going to have the populist moment Twitter had, because we did Twitter. This is just a facsimile of it. It doesn't offer anything new or something more beautiful or something more exciting. The promise of Blue Sky is, remember how good Twitter was? And people just age out of streetwear, age out of listening to Animal Collective, age out of having those interests, and we can parse why those things kind of stagger. But in my opinion, what I always ignore is like people just lose interest.
I agree. The kind of controversy that Blue Sky needs, I say look to LaMelo Ball.
Oh, that Joker tattoo. God damn. So telling.
So LaMelo having a wonderful season as LaMelo Day Ones.
He's good.
As LaMelo Day Ones.
He's a
who
hero.
Always said
of
that this guy
basketball.
is a superstar.
So awesome. So awesome.
I'm not saying this as a critique of Ant. I've just always thought, out of those young up and coming players, that I thought LaMelo was the best.
You don't got to bring Ant into this. He's no LaMelo.
Well, I'm saying he's a basketball genius. He's an incredible passer. He's tall. Like LaMelo is an outrageously good player.
And he has a new point of view, a new generational point of view.
Yeah. So I'm saying this has always been a pro LaMelo pod. And as you pointed out, the last image in the Joy Basketball talking about the future of the league.
LaMelo Ball in his original jersey, yeah.
But this is all in question now.
Oh, goddamn, what happened?
Well, you've been over on Truth Social, so I'm not sure if this came up. But it's a product of perhaps the woke mind virus. We'll decipher that. After a recent game, LaMelo goes out there and he talks about the other team loading up. He's talking loads, and he's not just talking load management. Well, he's sort of talking load management.
Of course he is.
I guess it's load management. So he says,
be careful, buddy. I'm about to fine you $100K.
He says the NH word. $100,000.
Right.
I mean, look, this is what he said. It's on TV.
3, 2, 1.
He said no homo. He's not the first player to have done this. 3-time MVP, 2-time MVP, 3-time MVP, Nikola Jokic also did this several years ago when talking about the length of Wendell Carter.
Roy Hibbert also.
And he dropped the NH bomb on him.
In Roy Hibbert's prime, maybe that's what took him down. Was it ignorance?
Did he do it too?
Oh, yeah. And he like giggled and we're like, yeah, dude. So LaMelo's biggest crime here is succumbing to 90s culture. God damn it. We thought he was a hero soaring above the scrum of us hip-hop heads talking about Rockefeller Records and Kendrick Lamar. And then he reveals himself to be a Fat Beats Day One.
But then you also think that his dad's probably like 50 years old and does it at the house.
All the time, right? And maybe he has like a friend.
Like every time they say their own last name, they've been NHing it for their whole lives.
Yeah, maybe his...
Oh, here come the Ball brothers. NH.
I mean, they've had to deal with being balls. And everyone loves balls. We love balls. All the balls.
I mean, respect to Rudy Gay, who just had to deal with the immature jokes that surrounded him because of his name for life.
There's a mid-range sharpshooter in Toronto that has suffered his whole life for his name, his God-given name. Dick.
Oh, I thought you were talking about RJ Barrett.
But right, it's like, okay, he got fined, I believe Jokic 40K and LaMelo 100K, the maximum.
Well, yeah, we're even woker now than we used to be. Is that the... Like, oh, when Jokic did it, it was bad, but now inexcusable.
But I can understand with the way America's going and after the election, you see all the big dogs, Donald Trump, Joe Rogan, Dana White, even the Speaker of the damn House watching a bunch of sweaty men grappling with each other in an arena. Those are men's men. They don't mess with the LGBTQI plus community. They watch men tapping each other out.
I am disgusted by the gay agenda. Guys, get out there in the smallest possible underoos and grapple until one submits.
Yeah. It's a real culture
that's right.
shift.
Get real sweaty.
Yeah. Hey, and afterwards, let's go on my private jet, Trump Air, and eat McDonald's with not a woman in sight. This is what real men do. We process burgers alone amongst ourselves. I mean, I'm interested in, jokes aside, I'm interested in this because there hasn't been a big culture shift since Trump won. To your point, he just won. And I think we still really care about language and about making other people sad that we don't want to make sad. And 100K is a fuck ton of money. And Silver's serious about this. Just don't say that. Is my thing. It's like you're a performer. Don't say it.
Also, though, as Cameron, who spearheaded the NH movement back in the day,
Invented it, maybe.
or at least popularized it for sure.
Did Hell Rel do it first? I don't know. Someone.
I mean, it absolutely
MB
emanated
to
from there.
Roten. Right.
Right. I mean, it may have been a Harlem thing. I'm just saying.
Right.
Whatever. But he's been just using pause for years. You can get away with pause. If LaMelo had just said,
tricky.
Yeah, they're loading up, pause, he would not have gotten fined.
No. Not for a few years until pause becomes a crazy word.
But also pause, at least has a little bit of the Office, that's what she said about it.
Sure.
It's like, yes, it is somewhat homophobic, but it's more like you could interpret that sexually.
The NBA,
and it also because it isn't specifically homophobic.
CJ McCollum, get to work. You need to establish a redraft of all these bombs, man. We need to have an NBA redraft of the H bomb, the F bomb, the J bomb, the W bomb, all the bombs. 26. Let's go.
What's the W bomb?
We'll find out.
Fair enough.
What would the W bomb be? The woke bomb?
WNBA.
Paige Beckers.
It was funny. I saw.
Go ahead.
I think it was Sue Bird. She was talking about the WNBA, and she's talking about Paige Brookers, who looks like she'll probably end up going to Dallas because they got the number 1 pick in the.
That's a shame.
WNBA lottery. I kind of knew it was going to happen because she just feels like Luka. Well, she feels like Luka.
She's you mean with the hezzy,
tall? Just she plays like Luka. And there was something about her in
blood dripping past the gauze in her knees.
Well, there was something about her in high school and Luka early on with the Mavs. They just felt like the same kind of player who'd been groomed to be this, passer, scorer. They're both tall. They're both blonde. In my mind, I just kind of have thought of her as a sort of
New World
Luka
Order
type character.
Yeah.
So her being in Dallas, I think, makes sense. It was random, but
I wanted her to go to LA.
that I thought that would have been fun too. Mm-hmm. Her in LA with Cameron Brink, like that.
Villain's awesome. I mean, Beckers is not a villain as a persona like Brink is, I think, in an enjoyable way. But them two together would have been fun to root against.
Oh yeah, the two sort of like hot blonde white chicks who are playing for LA, and
which is not true as their persona, right? But very fun to root against.
Yeah, I think the her in Dallas is cool. But the point I was getting back to was really about something that Sue Bird said, and she was like, we were a punchline on Saturday Night Live. No one respected us. And she's like, I kind of view Paige Brookers as the one who made us cool. Like before Caitlin Clark rose up and before
like her friendship with Suggs and all that. Like when we knew about her in high school.
Yeah, that was her take, and I'm not saying I necessarily agree with it or disagree with it. She was just like, yeah, Paige is the one who made women's basketball cool, in my opinion. And I'm like,
there's no UConn player that can make someone cool.
To be fair, she was the first woman version of the basketball mixtape.
Right.
If you go back and you look at like John Wall and Derrick Rose, Andrew Wiggins, like those players had lore before the NBA, before college, because they had mixtapes. Paige was actually the first woman to have like a widely circulated high school mixtape.
I begrudgingly agree because Sabrina was kind of goody two shoes mama mentality, right? Like she wasn't cool. She was great. And her story arc kind of got interrupted by Kobe's tragic death. So she became kind of Kobe's spiritual protege instead of a mixtape god, right? And Beckers, I mean, I think the what we're talking about is like Beckers is just cool. Like when you hear her talk, she's cool. She's not like a Jordan originalist. She's like, well, we played to win. She's like, she's a baller who probably listens to music we like, and like she's marketable.
She's a casino with Offset or whoever.
Sure, you know what I mean. Like she is likable, and I would argue Sabrina, being one of my favorite players, is not likable in that regard for me. So when Sue Bird says that, I kind of hear what she's talking about in those terms. Like,
yeah, I'm
Paige
with
is
you.
cool. Right.
I think that's what she was saying. I also just don't remember Sabrina having a high school mixtape. I'm sure she did, but I don't remember. I don't remember people talking about it or like going around like the basketball group chats and stuff. And Paige always did. Paige just did, and she was on the cover of Slam magazine, I think, while she was in high school.
And she plays
I don't know.
with
I think
swagger,
she was
right? Like
she had swagger, but she was also like a baller and cool, and
just
the way she played. Yeah. I think that's probably what it was. I mean, Sabrina is an awesome player, great shoes, but she is a traditional sort of WNBA player, like very intense. Looks like she was, raised by a coach who was like doing drills. Like she's hyper competitive. Great player, but doesn't break outside of the mold of what you think of as like a WNBA star.
And I agree. And what Sue Bird is kind of talking about also, and I don't care. I do care, but I don't know how Paige Beckers identifies herself. But Sabrina, had a boyfriend and doesn't identify with the LGBTQI plus community like Sue Bird champions, like the WNBA kind of champions, right? And to ignore that identity, I think, is doing a disservice to that wonderful league. So like when Sue Bird's like, we're down with Paige, I'm like, okay, I can see it, because Caitlin Clark is maybe even like a traditional kind of story, and Paige is a story that is new and where the WNBA wants to go.
I mean, I felt as if the critiques of the existing WNBA versus Caitlin Clark, a lot of it was steeped in homophobia and racism, and
of course,
it being a black queer league.
Yeah,
and that was what those culture warriors were actually trying to
talk about it, right?
Fight against, as opposed to just loving Caitlin Clark's Harden-esque abilities. It was like that she represented something different. And like it is kind of wild when you look at this and say, oh, the popularity of the league. It's like, oh, they have a cool white chick, and then we have a white chick who's shooting, and they're both straight. And Cameron Brink, I think she's straight too.
Yeah.
And then you look around like, well, Asia Wilson, she's dating Bam. Brianna Stewart, I think I don't know.
She has a kid with her partner. She's LGBTQI plus.
Got it. But I just mean that, the younger generation, it's like Angel Reese, like they're dating rappers.
Totally.
It's just more mainstream. They're more conventionally attractive, and I'm not saying ones weren't before. It's just more of an emphasis at this point. It's like, oh, put on your fit, put on, go out there like Zuck, put on your best drip, walk through the tunnel, wear fashion designers. Oh, like who are you dating? And it's just becoming like whiter, straighter, more based on some superficialities that go along with like whiteness and but ultimately, if you don't want to be a cult product, rising sea lifts all ships type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, the famous stories that I loved were of Paige growing up and playing one-on-one with Suggs and like tit for tat. It was like they would trade wins in their backyard, and they grew up together, and that's when Suggs was like a top prospect in the draft. And I remember some reporters were like, what a wonderful story. Are you guys like, would you be tethered together romantically, as you get older? And Paige was like, next, I don't want to talk about that. And I was just like, like there's a lot of story to be written about her, and she got hurt, which was disappointing. and she went to UConn, which I was disappointed at too. But I don't know. Yeah, what Sue Bird is talking about, I feel like is a big conversation, and she's just like kind of scratching that surface. I'm excited to see her in the page in the WNBA, but Dallas, maybe I'm just mad at Dallas for like throwing that finals like Mike Tyson against the Celtics.
Yeah, I think LA would have been cool, but Dallas in my mind was just where she was going to end up because of my weird Luka synthesis with her. Mm-hmm. But I also think, the WNBA adding a few more teams, they're starting to get, the kind of players that identify with teams that we thought of in these so-called, glory days of the NBA. Mm-hmm. When it was like you think of a team and you think of their player. And it's like that now, but obviously there's more player mobility than there were in decades past. But the WNBA is starting to get there. Okay, so you got Indiana, you got Caitlin, you got the New York ladies, and they won the title.
New York
you got
ladies,
Angel and
the Libs.
Yeah,
it's the only victory the Libs had this decade, or this.
The women year. Of New York, the ladies of New York.
Yeah.
But Chicago with Angel Reese, Cameron Brink in LA, Paige here. You're like, all right, we're starting to get. And then, with you look at like Nisa, I don't know, like most of the teams now have a face of the franchise. Like that's a real step in the right direction. I mean, even like Jewel Lloyd, Seattle.
What the WNBA is missing, and I am 100% certain of this, as a man saying this, is they need some true haters on TV before the games, in middle of the games, and after the games. They need 4 curmudgeons. Maybe one of the 3 is a straight man, and then 3 curmudgeons of various grievances, sort of like inside the NBA. And then you can get
like a straight man with a bunch of homosexuals.
Right. Hey, the S-bomb. We don't have to say the S-bomb on here yet before we redraft. But I think sort of like what we were talking about with these social media companies that are trying to gain traction is there needs to be a real opposition inside the building of the WNBA. We don't want the people who are like, we hate it, the product sucks, I'm not into it. Like, fine, go away. This is not helpful. We need the people to be like, who's a fraud? Asia Wilson's a fraud. You know who's better than her? Diana Taurasi. And just like have bots attack that thing, and having hopefully Sue Bird. I kind of wanted like Taurasi to be on the new Inside the NBA if that didn't continue. Like recreate that vibe, but get Taurasi on there because she's like one of the better shit talkers in hoops. But that conversation and that debate is essential for the WNBA to kind of take the next step, where we debate ideas within the parameters of that league.
I fully agree, Andrew. I think if you have an exciting product that people are tuning in to watch, it is imperative that you surround that product with experts who can explain how the current product that you're selling
What's the
sucks in comparison
Suggs?
to
right.
how Jalen sucks in comparison to the product of, say, 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's how you sell the current league, by saying that it stinks. The players, soft. The game itself, uninteresting.
Unethical.
Completely unethical. Unlike what you can't watch right now.
Right.
Unlike what we're not selling. Yeah.
Well, to that point, there's hope for people who believe that, because Inside the NBA is coming back. Its death was, what's that? Premature? What's the right word I'm looking for? But TNT, Chuck is back, Shaq is back. There was an agreement. They're going to be on ABC and ESPN, not on TNT anymore, but I believe they're going to go through the finals. It is going to be bigger and more powerful than ever, and I love it because I think those guys are geniuses, but their basketball opinions, for entertainment's sake, sugs.
So I think, welcome to the NBA restaurant. Come on in. Can I tell you what's on the menu? Terrible. Flavorless.
Even worse.
Weak. Oh, would you like the weak sauce that we have on the menu, sir?
I'd like to start with some
what
diarrhea.
happened to the What happened to the good stuff? Oh, we haven't been serving that in 20 years, sir. But trust me, I ate it all. I loved it. Let me tell you how great it was back in the day. This restaurant was
E. coli.
it was fantastic. But yeah, sure. Pull up a chair.
Yeah.
And have some of the garbage, the swill. And we'll just ladle some out on your plate for you. Enjoy.
The NBA portion, the NBA food is terrible, and the portions are tiny.
What's on the menu? Honestly, I don't even eat here anymore. I couldn't even tell you like what's on the menu. What's in that dish? No clue.
That's not even a real Parmesan. That's not one of even the real Parmesans. You just can't put sauce and cheese and call it a Parmesan.
Back in the day, veal, eggplant.
Those are unethical garlic
meatballs.
knots. I've seen ethical garlic knots. Trust me, I've seen ethical garlic knots, and those, sir, are unethical.
Today, you just can't get them.
You can't get garlic knots like you used to.
Don't have them.
Yeah.
So you're excited that they're going to be doing the finals. I always thought it was like a nice moment, like happen in summer. It was like when you'd be riding the bus on the last day of school. It's like, all right, we're done with Inside the NBA. We don't have to see those guys for a year. And now, no. You're getting them through the bitter end.
And I've had a change of heart because, not really, but because Twitter sucks so bad now, and Blue Sky and whatever Threads. And I used to enjoy NBA Twitter quite a bit. I still do. But fuck it. If you want to argue about like how hand checking was the real way to play, or Michael Jordan 6 for 6, like I need it. I took it for granted, and I'm sorry.
One of the symbols of new NBA, Jared McCain. He's getting called gay Reddit. They're calling him zesty. He's got painted nails. He's a TikTok dancer. He's openly said he is a psychologist. Can you believe that? A psychologist.
Real men watch MMA with no psychiatrist around. Psychologist.
Real men self-medicate, my friend.
That's right.
That's how you get to Gen X tranquility.
I don't have feelings. I have submission holds.
Yes.
What's true?
That's right.
You don't need to take a break from talking because of that. You don't have to cancel out a whole group of people in our wonderful population just because I said that.
No, you just make them submit.
That's right. So McCain is the Allen Iverson for Gen Z. He is, I would say, the most unapologetically e-boy player we've seen. And there are other examples, like Bol Bol's kind of a sad boy. Oh, such a big fan. Mad that he's not playing for another segment.
And then I guess back in the day, who was our guy, the goth who ended up getting arrested with all the guns and heroin?
Oh my God, Robert Swift.
Robert Swift. He was.
That was.
We hadn't had a lot of goth players. He was in that mix, but that was also mental illness there. So McCain is, in the same way Allen Iverson rubbed people the wrong way for being a quote unquote a thug and representing hip hop.
Yeah.
Now we look at that as being completely safe and adorable. It's like there was a GQ story about Trey Mann who's dressing like it's the early 2000s, but when Allen Iverson did it, it was a problem. But this is how time goes. The most dangerous person on earth becomes the safest. Right. And that's just how this works. So McCain is now a danger to masculinity in some ways because of his painted nails and his dancing and him being sort of more feminine.
Don't let him play LaMelo. You don't want that smoke, McCain or LaMelo. I'm not sure. So
you liked McCain a lot.
Yeah.
In the draft. I am not the draft expert. I watched him play. I'm like, the guy can shoot. Yeah. You were on it. You said McCain, you really liked him. What have you seen from him thus far in the Sixers' nightmare season?
Well, he's getting a great opportunity. And back to the draft. I mean, whatever. A lot of people like McCain, and oddly, I think like his TikTok Zoomer ways kind of damaged his stock capital. I think he fell because of that a few spots. It's like he's too obsessed with going online, and he's not focused, and he should spend more time in the gym. I'm like, get him. The Sixers should get him because he's gonna fall, and he's just like a fundamentally great, whatever Duke cliche. But you wrote the article on cookieshoop.com blog, but he could shoot. He's a little small. He's very skilled. He has flashes of basketball IQ that is really valuable and underappreciated, in my opinion. And he was less of a home run swing and more of a you can't really miss with a player this good.
So, first off, I'm with you. I think that there was probably some GM who was like, I don't know, man. He seems
1,000%.
a little seems a little sus.
Yeah.
Like, let's not do it. Just don't want to deal with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that happened.
Yeah.
As his opportunity in Philly arose because Maxey got hurt. Prior to that, he wasn't playing a lot. And he just sort of slipped into Maxey's role, seamlessly. He's a scoring guard. Mm-hmm. He's shown, I think, more playmaking chops than Maxey. He doesn't have the same explosiveness and athleticism. But in some ways, the fact that he is more patient and sort of considered gives him time to make plays and to see the court more, I don't know, fluidly than Maxey, who is kind of one speed. Like, he's going to the basket and he's going to beat you there. And if he can't, well, he can't. But most of the time he can. I think McCain, I mean, I'm clearly not saying he shoots like Steph, because no one does. But he moves like Steph. That ability, because Steph is not a crazy athlete in those ways either.
No.
But McCain intuitively knows he kicks the ball.
Steph is much faster, though.
Steph is faster, but McCain's fast in terms of, he relocates really well. This is what I'm saying. Like, he passes, he cuts. He is great at hunting threes in a way that you have to be smart. It just requires it, because you have to really understand spacing and timing and like where people are moving on the court and creating passing lanes.
When I say fast, I don't mean from A to B sprinting. I mean, Steph gets to valuable spots on the court very quickly.
And I think McCain is doing some of that. I just meant that I don't see a lot of players who have that ability, and McCain does, where he knows where to get to and has a quick release, and he's just generating threes that other guys can't.
Yeah. And
they just don't have the processing speed or the release to do that. And Steph is the paragon of that. He's the god.
Yeah. And to your point, that exact point, McCain is impressive because he's scoring so much, and he's having his moment because people are seeing these scoring totals and being like, do we have a star on our hands? But concurrent to that, just to echo what you're talking about, I like the way he sees space on the court. I like the shots he selects. I like when he passes it, and I like where he stands. And that sounds really simple, but like, not a lot of players can do that, let alone rookies.
Totally. I mean, I think he's 20.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk a lot about like basketball genius, right? And when you see it in someone like Jokic, it's very apparent. Mm-hmm. He's a big passer. He's 7 feet tall. And if you kind of look at height as like a pyramid, right, with a scarcity at the top, like there's 7-footers and whatever portion of them on the planet are in the NBA because there's so few of them. But even if you get down to like 6'7", 6'8", there aren't that many of them. You walk around New York City, you don't see someone who's 6'7" on a daily basis.
Wait till you see me after my leg lengthening surgery, though. I'm saying my arms are really short, but my leg. Just wait. I haven't seen you in a couple.
You're one of the few. You're one of the very few.
I've healed up real nice, man.
But you don't see a lot of them. So there are guys who are in the NBA because of the scarcity of people who are that tall, who are sort of incomplete players, but have brilliant understanding of the game, and that may make up for them not being great shooters or incredible athletes or whatever. Like whether that's like a Kyle Anderson or I don't know, Dario Saric. There's just guys who have some limitations, but they're huge and they're smart, so they can be good basketball players. Mm-hmm. At the guard position, like 6'1", 6'2", you can't really be that incomplete because you're not only competing against all those taller guys, you're competing against like every normal 6'1" basketball player on the planet.
This is a story of my life, and when I say my life, I mean my brain. I'm a diminutive brain, man.
I just mean you can't make the NBA at 6'1" without being a mostly complete player. Like you have to be able to handle the ball, and you have to be a good athlete, and you have to be able to shoot, and you have to, like there's just so many criteria, and that plateau that's required to beat out another 6'1" guy. The threshold is just obscene. So I think it's sometimes harder to know that a 6 foot guy is a basketball genius, because when you see like Draymond Green make a play, you're like, oh, well, he can't really shoot. He's huge. That's a genius move. And with McCain, he might be a basketball genius. I'm willing to say it's possible.
Are you willing to say? Let's go.
I'm willing to say. It's just really hard to know with someone who's 6'1".
I agree. And I urge people to read your wonderful writing on the subject at cookiesoups.com/blog. But the excitement is real, and I kind of I stick by the original thought I had of him as a Duke prospect, which is, however wonderful he is and a basketball genius, he does not have superstar potential. So he's scoring big right now because he has that opportunity. And if you go down the list of rookies drafted this year, statistically, he's probably in the top 3, maybe even top 1, depending on what you like. But he's getting the opportunity. And I think there's certain rookies in this class that have much higher ceilings than him, obviously, whether that be about size, to your point, or skill set. He does not project to be an all-NBA player. That said, if you can get outside of the lottery, if you can get a 10-year NBA rotation player, cha-ching.
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at Maxey and the similarity in what they can do, I'm not saying, oh, we can trade Maxey. I just mean we know there's a prototype and a role for an all-star in that way, and whether it's Jordan Poole or someone who's at a lower tier, a Schroeder or like Anthony Simons. There's a lot of these little guards in the league, and they're all good at offense because otherwise they wouldn't be in the NBA because they're not there for defense. Right? And I don't know where he fits on that hierarchy, because I think he looks like he could be a special shooter. He looks like he's got a sense of like floor spacing and ease with which he plays the game at a young age, that maybe he can be a star. But I also think that specific prototype, like the closest you get right now might be Donovan Mitchell. I just mean Donovan Mitchell is also a freak athlete.
Yeah, he's got hops that McCain never had, to be fair to Mitchell and McCain. I mean, I got to defend the hot takers out there who got shouted down when they're like, do you trade Maxey now? I believe Stephen A. Smith, someone of a big name, said that. Yeah, you got to start thinking about that. You can't just be like, enjoy the moment. It's like, no. As we saw with Joel Embiid, time is so valuable, and the window can shut on you in a split second. So, I think it's safe to say McCain is a home run as a draft pick. Exceedingly playable, trustworthy, and dirt cheap. And Maxey, his brand is probably never going to be bigger than it is now. Having those two in the backcourt will work. I think McCain's going to present himself as a better facilitator than he is now next to Maxey. But if I was Daryl Morey, I'd be like, can we build around this very valuable, affordable commodity and sell high on the thing that we're holding? Not to say that he should do it, but let's not hypothesize here. Let's have some fun with this.
Right. I get what you mean. I don't think it's time to do that yet, but having a player who's already this good and somewhat redundant
I know.
Well, now you've got 4 years of this guy making chump change in comparison to Maxey, who is
Max
now starting his mini-max contract, no pun intended, which is not the same money as, say, a Jaylen Brown, but it's real.
Yeah.
And you say, all right, well, what if we traded Maxey for a forward who is making $40 million a year, and then we can have a player who is another scoring guard in his stead with McCain, and then all of a sudden we have Embiid and Paul George and, like, you know, I'm just saying, like an OG style player or a Siakam. I don't.
1,000%.
I'm not saying that's the move, but someone like that, yeah, that may work better. But also, my biggest concern with the Sixers is, like, Joel Embiid has not played a lot.
He won't.
Not that he's
done.
I'm saying it's not that he's rusty. It's not that he's out of shape. Those things, we've seen that before. Those are temporary. You can get over that. My concern is that he's moving like he did in last year's playoffs. He's moving like he did in the Olympics.
Don't let
And
him
my thing
fight
is,
a vlogger.
well, I'm just saying, when does that get better? Like, when is he going to play his knee into better shape? Is he going to play into mobility? I'm saying it may happen. I think he'll be better once he's
going to go on a run at some point this season.
I think he'll be good. I'm just more concerned that Joel Embiid is like a stationary shooter putting up air balls. That's not going to be happening in a month or so. But he may not be able to be a great help defender. He may not be good in transition. He may have issues that go along with his mobility and his right knee. Again, I don't think he's going to shoot 3 air balls a night after he's been playing for a while. That's just not who he is. And he's a great shooter. He's great at drawing fouls. He's going to be an effective offensive player. But I do wonder, like, at what cost, if that makes sense.
And fuck it, right? If there's no police in this room, in this virtual room.
No cops here.
Yeah, so when I say something like, whatever you get out of Joel Embiid is a plus. Tank for Flag. Should the Sixers tank for Flag? Because McCain, Maxey, or Ace at the 3, like, ooh. So build around McCain, Flag, and Ace. Like, take big swings, because you're not going to win a championship this year until you see Joel Embiid rocking, right? One season goes by in a flash. At some point, the MAGA's going to have to figure out that they have 2 years at roughly to do all their MAGA shenanigans, because time flies and the midterms are going to be upon us. And, you know, Cooper Flag and Ace Bailey, they look kind of nice. The Sixers are on top of the lottery odds. What do you say to that? Have you seen Cooper Flag play?
Well, I would say the biggest problem with the Sixers doing that
I want to move on from the Sixers to the draft.
No, I know where you're going with this. I'm saying that they specifically own 1 through 6. So if you throw away the season and get the 7th pick and onward, it's like a real kick in the teeth because it goes to OKC.
Fair enough.
But
fair enough.
yes, so I'm just saying that's an issue with the tanking plan.
But if they're bad enough, they won't get 7, guaranteed.
Well, also, this is not Philly specific, but more Cooper Flag, is that you look at the Eastern Conference, I believe right now there's 4 teams with winning records after the Knicks beat the Nets last night. Like, there's a lot of bad teams. Half of these teams could make an executive decision to pull the plug in a couple months. And I think a lot of that depends on what they see from Cooper Flag.
I don't like what I'm seeing, man.
And what I see is White Randall.
Oh, Randall with a motor. Oh my gosh! Like, someone posted a sizzle reel of a game he played last week, in hopes of, like, the first half showing his pluses, and then the second half being like, well, he has stuff to work on. The first half horrified me, man. It was him stopping the ball, stutter stepping, and hitting mid-range jumpers. I'm like, I don't know. I love Julius Randle, but, like, you don't want to tank for Randle. Randle's a good player. If you can get him at the back end of the lottery, definitely. But we're talking tanking for this guy?
One point is that your observation that he plays like Randle Can't unsee it either.
I can't unsee it, man.
It's a lot of jab steps. It's a lot of shoulders. It's a lot of sort of getting entangled in the lane with your back to the basket and kind of warding off another defender. He doesn't generate easy looks. He is big. He can shoot. He's polished. He's athletic. And maybe in a more pro-style system, you can figure out ways for him to go ISO, and he's just going to have the mix of shooting and athleticism that'll be tough to guard one-on-one. But yeah, when he plays, he seems to like playing like Randall.
Yeah. And like, I want to compare every white god to Keith Van Horn, but Van Horn was like silky smooth, man. Like, Cooper Flagg has a bit of chaos in the economy of his motions, which just reminds me of Julius Randle. There's a lot of elbows. There's a lot of like questionable
lack of
footwork.
economy. Lack of economy.
Yes. There's questionable footwork. Like, there's a lot of tiptoeing through in the paint. And, you know, Ace Bailey is up for debate as well. Like, he does not look like a world eater as well, but he's fluid. He can shoot. He might be a little small. So we're finding out in real time before teams tank. I think they're paying close attention. I hope they are, the teams that paid attention to Luka in Europe. But like, I don't know if there is a savior in this draft. And let's say in the pie in the sky, Cooper Flagg on the Nets or the Sixers as they are constructed now. Good? I don't know, man. I'd almost rather have OG Anunoby.
Yeah, I don't really see Philly bottoming out anyway. But
no, I'm just being. I
know you're just talking about those teams,
yeah.
Right. If you look at the Raptors, like, oh, they have Cooper Flagg. This all makes sense now. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. He's not the
Utah. Clearly, Utah is trying to get Cooper Flagg.
Please, can the white flag go to Utah? That'd be amazing. Oh wait,
waving at the white flag.
Yeah, just an aside. I know this is on our docket, but like, does John Collins have a terrible sense of humor? Is his breath bad? Does he have like terrible taste in music? Because every time he's given the opportunity to play, like he is now with Walker Kessler's injury, he's a top 25 player.
He's good.
He's small. I get it. But like, Atlanta gave up on him. He's small for a big. Atlanta gave up on him, and there's rumors that Utah is just showcasing him to move him. But he's putting up numbers.
I believe his contract ends after this year. I think he makes about 28.
Yeah, he's kind of worth it.
No, I'm with you. I'm saying I don't believe he's going to be a long-term solution in Utah. So they're definitely trading him at the deadline.
But no one even wants him. He was available in the offseason. What's going on with him?
I mean, personally, again, not to rehash Sixers stuff, I've looked at try to figure out if they could make the money work. He'd be a good fit for that team.
On paper.
I think he's good. I think he's on paper.
Like,
I think he is annoying.
Right. This is where I'm going, because McCain seems like he has off-court minuses because of his social media addiction. But from all reports from Philly, like, he's a really fun guy to be around.
Yeah, everyone seems to like him.
Exactly. Collins, on the other hand, I've heard is like not very welcome not as beloved as other players are.
No, he just has the vibe of Dickhead Triangle.
He has Dickhead Triangle vibes. He's at Italy eating a shitty burrata while waiting for an forward-facing table at Jack's wife Frida.
Is that John Collins at Cafe Select?
Ooh, is that John Collins rocking that Amy Leon Dore hat? That basketball hat? Is he wearing Noah pants?
Why is John Collins coming out of the kitchen of La Esquina? What's he doing back there? Is he cooking?
Is he refrying those beans? What's John Collins? Wait, we're in Dickhead Triangle. This all makes sense.
Oh, now I get what's going on with this guy.
I see a triangle. I see dickheads. Wait a second.
Is that John Collins?
But anyway,
but no, I think he will end up on a team like Philly or someone. Even though he makes a lot of money, it's clearly Utah's just there to trade these guys.
I agree. Even Walker Kessler.
Probably so.
I mean,
well, let's talk a little bit about the remainder of the West here, because we've talked OKC a bit because they started out with an incredible record, and then they've had some injuries and they've lost a few games. So we know how good they.
The biggest injury. Yeah.
Yeah, so we know how good they are, and we also know why they've been losing games because they lost Chet. Some of these other teams in the West, though, have some pretty impressive records, and I think we could talk Warriors. I want to talk a little bit about Houston because it was unclear if they could figure things out. They had a lot of young players. They gave long-term extensions for a good amount of money to Şengün and to Jalen Green, who I'm not a big fan of.
No.
And yet here they are at 10-4, I believe.
10-4, third place, ahead of the Lakers.
Would you say that the moves they've made, giving these guys long-term contracts, have paid off?
I love that team because they drafted, other than Jalen Green, who's not like, he's a bit underrated now because people hate him so much. He's still a valuable player on a weird contract, but they drafted some good players. They acquired Fred VanVleet. They have Tari Eason, we've always loved, and we have to mention the U-Bomb. Ime Udoka is there. He's a decent coach. Like, somehow, like, beyond your best interests, you put together enough good stuff, and the results kind of just are good. I don't think they're on. This is their plan, but they're winning games.
I mean, I think Tari Eason was someone that, in my rare interest in the draft,
everyone
a couple years ago,
everyone liked him.
Well, then he should have gone earlier. I looked at him and said, "This guy's a defensive freak. I'm into it."
He went right. I mean, where did he go? He went exactly where he's supposed to, because obviously, if you can get a better player than Tari Eason, you get him.
He went 17th. I was like,
that's about right. That's like mid first round. It's not.
That's
too
about
shabby.
right if you underrate him.
I mean, I'm saying, like, he had to be good because they spent the 17th pick on him.
I'm just saying there were some bums taken ahead of him. I'm sure.
I'm sure, but like everyone.
But for me, I think I'm just saying he's my guy.
Okay, fair. That's fair. You just had to put it that way.
Yeah, I feel like I really claimed him early on, and you said no. I think AJ Griffin is better. I think Johnny Davis is better.
AJ Griffin, though. That's where
no, you love these guys. Like no. Give me all these other guys.
I had Eason in the top 14, I think. Anyway, whatever. He's your guy.
We'll have to go back to the Quo Big Boy. I'm saying he's my guy. He's my guy.
Yeah.
But I think him and Asar Thompson. Or I'm sorry, Amen Thompson, are an incredible prototype of athlete for winning basketball games. They are versatile, they're switchable, they can jump out of the gym, they can defend guards, they can defend at the rim, offering secondary shot blocking, they can rebound. I love those guys. And I think what the Rockets have stumbled upon is having Şengün as kind of like your mini Jokic, and then having Jalen Green as your weird chucker. This really works because of Fred VanVleet being a phenomenal player, really underrated still, and then having these two dogs. You just add these two wings who might be the best defensive wing combo in the league.
Shout out to the Knicks, but maybe. I mean, the Thompson twins have their flaws, and I think as the season wears on, I think Houston also had a good start last year. I like these pieces, man. But I don't see a vision here other than, like, let's collect as many interesting players as we can, and then they'll do the Presti thing where they'll sculpt kind of like their vision of it. and how ironically Presti was known as his kink was like 7 footers who kind of were ball handlers, and now he starts J-Dub at center. You know, like you do what you can do after you see it. He lets go of your boy Poku. I think I love what the Rockets are doing, and I love their individual players, but it's not a fully formed thought yet. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, because I think they're trying to move Green as well. I don't think Fred VanVleet's going to be on this team for much longer. They had Reed Shepherd, I think the best player in the draft last year. This is not the fully formed thing, but they've just won a few games. It's awesome.
Well, they have a top 3 defense, and
it's too early for all that. But yeah, sure. It's better to have a top 3 than top 23.
I just think it's clear why their defense is good. You know, it's because of Thompson and Eason.
And Eason was hurt last year.
Yeah, their defense was pretty good last year, but to me, that's why their defense looks elite. Those guys are really, really good defenders. Dylan Brooks is a really good defender. I don't know. It's funny looking at the rest of that team, who is not particularly exciting to me. I think Şengün is cool, but I don't know that he's a center on a title team. But they're kind of useful. I don't know. I guess what I'm getting back to is, it looks to me as if the Eason Thompson combination.
I'm holding up.
Who's that?
I spent like $250 on this Tari Eason rookie card like a few years ago.
All right, maybe he's your guy too.
No. For dorks, I'm holding a number 1 out of 10 gold, optic gold.
What's this
Probably less than what I paid for it.
Even with him rising as a young defensive stud?
Oh, it doesn't matter. Jokic cards are like not that valuable, you know? Guards are valuable. So a defensive guy isn't, but I bought this 1 out of 10. It popped up on eBay, and I spent money on it. I don't know what to do with it. If someone wants it, let me know. Ben.
I mean, he is my guy. I kind of have to buy it from you now.
Yeah, I know. I'm holding it right here. You can't see. It's a beautiful card.
I see it. It's intoxicating.
That's right. It's the gold. Anyway, so I don't know. The Rockets, maybe I'm being too general about it. Maybe I just want to see Reed Shepherd run this team, because God, I'm excited to. McCain is the rookie to talk about, but Reed Shepherd, I think, has the potential to be a hilarious tiny white guy all-star.
Yeah, I think he's a cool player too. I guess I'm just saying, I think Houston made all these draft picks at the top of the lottery. They got a bunch of players of different varieties who are talented, and maybe because a few of those players are defensively oriented and they have a coach who clearly values defense, they may sort of inadvertently back into having a team identity.
That's what I mean, right? Like you do enough good stuff, and then all of a sudden you're good.
Yeah, just looking at some of the cleaning the glass stats, when Tari Eason, Amon Thompson, and Dylan Brooks are on the floor, it's only been 170 possessions, which is basically double the amount of minutes. So we're talking less than 100 minutes, obviously less than 90 minutes, but they're outscoring opponents by 32.2 points per 100 possessions, and they're allowing only 89 points per 100 possessions, which is absurd. Yeah. So I look at that group and I'm like, well, if you could just put them on the court all the time with Fred VanVleet and Şengün or whoever, I don't know. I'm intrigued.
Yeah. And to your overall point, some of this stuff has to be consolidated in order to make a run. And Jabari Smith has been disappointing, but I have the 22 draft up. This was an excellent draft with some obvious disappointments. I just want to go to the screen.
Do we have the KBB?
I can find it. not on hand. I should keep him on hand moving forward. I got a lot wrong. I didn't love Paolo, but Paolo, Chet, Jabari, Keegan, Ivy, Mathurin, Sharp, Dyson Daniels, Sohan, Johnny Davis, LOL, Usman Jang, J-Dub at 12 is crazy. Abaji, Mark Williams, who I think will be good. Tari Eason at 17. That's us. Christian Braun at 21. That's a sick draft, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of good players in that.
Walker Kessler at 22. Your boy Roddy, 23. No, I don't know. Jovic at 27. I had Jovic as high as 2. Ty Washington, if you remember the Knicks rumors of yore. But I don't know. All I'm saying is, like, some drafts are kind of weird when you look back. The 22 draft is fire.
Tari Eason, Amon Thompson, Dylan Brooks, Van Vliet, Şengün together have played 29 possessions, the equivalent of about 15 minutes, are plus 60 with a defensive rating of 64. Make them your starters. That's all I'm saying.
Try
it.
This is where you get caught up. You're like, yo, these 20 minutes when they're together is elite, and then it's like versus a tanking team.
I'm aware of small sample size. I know. I'm saying, to me, that's the lineup that makes sense. Try it.
Try me. I mean, they got good. They got good combos.
But also, Amon Thompson and Şengün is not a great pairing because two of those guys can't shoot. And
Thompson ran the point for a game last week, right, when Van Vliet was out. And that was exciting, and he put up a nice game, but it wasn't your ideal situation against like a good team.
And I do like him a lot as a passer. He's gifted, but most of his offense is like him charging into the paint and putting it off the glass or something.
Oh, the Cooper flag. He raised the white flag? It's like, I'm just going to get this shot off.
You know who?
Never waves the right flag. The right flag.
You know who never surrenders. Never calls it quits. Never ends a pod.
Never admits defeat in an election. Cookies Hoops, that's who.
Cookies Hoops, that's the answer. Cookies, yeah.
I love cookies.